Anyhow, Robert Leo Kilian was born January 22nd, 1933 on the Kampaki farm west of Melrose. Dad didn't have any information on the cost and all that like he did for the others, but I'm sure it was the same thing. Dr. Zachman got $25 and Aunt Mary came and stayed, and I think she got a $20 bill. And that was for the first 4 at least. Gerald is now about 7.5, and Uncle Leo Thielen is his godfather, and Aunt Sophie Joke, who is Sophie Kilian Joke, is his godmother. And I asked Bob here last week, I said, do you remember seeing her very often? And he said,
oh, I never saw her.
I never saw her, and I know why, because she died June 1933.
Oh.
So that wasn't very long. And she was 81 years old, and her youngest child was Sylvester, and he was the youngest of 14 kids.
Yeah, right.
They didn't have just a kid, they had litters in those days. Anyhow, she died of breast cancer. Well, Bob here then, of course, we moved from that Kampaki farm to St. Rose in 1935, and he was in the first grade in the old school. He had, with his favorite teacher was Ben Keppers, and it was up on the hill, and Ben had a way for discipline, he'd just throw a book at him, or whatever.
I did worse than that.
Worse than that. Not good memories. Anyhow, next year, we had a brand new school, and I got a picture of it up there, you can see it. It was built by the WPA. We had indoor toilets. You were a chemical toilet. None of us kids who went to school had indoor plumbing. So a lot of the kids, when they got to school, the first place they went was inside. It wasn't cold and all that, so. Anyhow, we went on along, and second grade, Bob moved into, of course, into the new school. And let's see, what happened here? I got August 3rd, 1946. Now, this is close to the time where we're gonna sell this farm. Dad bought the farm and we had to fix everything up. And one of the things is we went out and to replace the line fence. Al wasn't there anymore, but Jerry was on the hay rack with a 16-pound post maul. My dad was going up with a crowbar making holes. And Bob, I think, would take the post, set it in the hole, and hold it a little bit until Jerry gave it a few taps and found it down. I was on the tractor and had a hand clutch, and I could pull the thing ahead to the next one. Well, evidently there was some miscommunication between Bob and Jerry, and Bob reached the top of the post to see if it was tight enough, and he didn't realize Jerry was coming with another blow. Give him the finger, Bob. He's lived with that finger that way the rest of his life. But the neighbors said they knew something was wrong when they saw John Kilian speeding down that gravel road that time to get that fixed. By the way, the hospital was $19.50 and the doctor was $28 for that one. The other thing then, when we sold the farm in 1947, that said March 1st was the time to move. My parents didn't know where they wanted to go yet, but that schoolhouse was empty. So they went over and got that all cleaned up. We moved in there on March 1st and lived there for a couple months. And one night, we'd go out on the road, the Bergmans were there, we'd go up and down the hill, and Bob thought it was kind of cool. The fork on his bike broke, but he put it underneath the wheels and he went up and down the road. Well, the second time coming down the hill, all of a sudden he hit a bump. And Bob, let's see, is that where that nose thing?
No, I just, the wheel went out ahead
and you went.
I ended up with a bloody face, a couple of loose teeth, and,
Yeah.
but I went over to Bergman's, I didn't want to go home, and, you know, I'd just been whooped or something for being
Okay.
stupid.
Bob was actually a freshman in high school at that time, and when after we moved into that schoolhouse, my parents went to town in Melrose one day and they saw this little place and they thought, gee, that'd be a nice place to buy. And so they pulled in and here they found out old Fritz and his wife were ready to retire and they were gonna sell farm and move into town. I'll make a long story short, they bought that, there were 2 cows came with the place, and so Bob stayed there for about a month or so and milked the cows while we were out there finishing up our school in St. Rose. I know I'd come over on weekends and stay with him. And then, that summer then, Bob was gonna stay there and milk the cows, but every once in a while, Bob and his dad would get into kind of a, Bob decided, I'm going out to work, so right east of Melrose, across from the Kilian farm, was Norb Hiltner, and he worked for Norb Hiltner that summer. Came back home, and you would have been in the sophomore year then, and went through that, and then, let's see, at the end of the sophomore year, is that when you went to the bakery and started at the Swanee? He started going to the bakery. He'd get up at 4, let's see, he had to be to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was his bed partner, so usually I woke up too, and he'd walk a mile into Melrose to work at the bakery. And then I think you stayed on and rented a room from our cousin Tony Kilian.
That was the first one.
And then, how many hours did you work while you were going to school? Every morning?
Well, yeah, I'd work till 8:30 and I was, and then go to school.
So, again,
Then
away from home.
Saturday was longer.
So, by the way, when he was working at home and staying there, he paid $1 a month rent. So, also, our older sister Gladys was at home for a couple of years working. She paid $1 a day rent. You didn't stay at mom and dad's house, or you didn't stay at dad's house, free. When he was with Tony, he ended up buying a car from Tony. And then you said you lived with a couple other people in town too for a while. Joined the National Guard at age 16, and this is getting right into the Korean War time. And then he wasn't 18 when they were mobilized, so you had a choice to opt out, right?
Well, your parents had a sign for you if you were under 18.
Oh.
Yeah, unless you lied. But I didn't want to go. It was an infantry outfit and was with Sauk Center, which was very, very anti-Melrose.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we didn't play football for a while.
Sports and so forth, so
Vikings, Packers.
there was 3 of us.
But Bob did that. You said you participated in intramural hockey, and I never knew that in Melrose at the time, but you said you did.
It's on my list.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, he enlisted in the Army on April 6, 1951, and he was in until March 7th, 1954. He did his basic training, which is a little shorter because he had that National Guard experience.
No, because I was in the Army Security Agency. It was only 6 weeks instead of 14 weeks for you guys.
Oh, okay. Did that at Fort Riley, Kansas, and then he went out to school in Fort Mammoth, New Jersey, especially for radio repair. And you said you're a little frustrated there for a while, but then people got farmed out. Some went to Korea, some went. He ended up in the Philippines. But he got over there and he didn't have a security clearance. So he couldn't do the job they wanted him to do yet. So somewhere or another they found out that he did some baking in that. So he went into the mess hall and they loved the stuff he made. Well, then finally his clearance came through. And then they gave him a choice. Do you want to stay, do you want to go and do that with your security, or do you want to stay with the cooking and baking? He chose cooking and baking, right? And did that for a couple of years.
12 hours and had 2.5 days off. 12 on, 60 off.
So, got out of service, as I said, on March 7th, 1954. And then you kind of wandered around a little bit. He went to a bakery in St. Cloud for 6 months. I think he said could use his GI Bill and get some training. Got married, I remember this day because I was there, 6/25/55, St. Boniface to Dort. And my favorite guy, Father Huffman, will officiate it. The guy who pounded me over the head a few times. No, I got some time off of school. My mother told me, if he ever does that again, you just come home, and I did. And the next day, sister said, you're gonna have to apologize to him, and I told her I can't do that. And I told her I talked to my mother, and I said, I chose the fourth commandment. And she said, just a minute. She talked to a couple other nuns. She came back and just wanted to go back in the classroom. And that was it. Father Huffman never apologized to me, and he should apologize to a lot of people. If you wanna, well, let's not go there. Then after that bakery thing, Bob was an Electrolux salesman for about a year, right? And he worked for MetLife for, he said, about 6 years. I bought a policy when I came home on leave in 1956, and I still have it, a $10,000 policy. Got that from him. Worked for Uniworld Tire for about 10 years. And then all of you kids know BK Auto for a while. And then he had the Spur station, and that kept the whole family busy, right? Well, he finally retired in 97 at the age of 64. And what else would you like to tell us, Al? Or Bob?
Plenty of it there.
I gave him a buggy ride on his wedding day on a buggy that I pulled behind an old 31 Chevy.
Oh, really?
Cool. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Took a picture of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was, let's see, I didn't have to milk the cows that day because I was in the service. So, anyhow, congratulations on you becoming a nonagenarian a week from today.